Hello everyone, RG from Vidhya Communication Enhancers is back again. Today I have one more interesting story. The man who could never decide except when he was escaping. Every evening Raghav held a meeting inside his head. It began with a simple question: what should I do now? Study, maybe. Work on unfinished project that would be useful. Solve the problem that defeated me yesterday. Perhaps. Learn something new. Yes. But what? Exercise. I could read. Which book? Work on my career. Where should I begin? Think about the future. I don't even know what the right direction is. 10 minutes passed. 20, then 20. Every useful choice produced another question. If he chose one skill, perhaps another skill was more important. If he opened a difficult problem, perhaps he should first revise the basics. If he started a project, perhaps he needed a better project. If he planned his career, perhaps he was planning too much and executing too little. Every road divided into 10 more roads. His mind became crowded railway station in which every train looked important. So he boarded none. Then one thought appeared. Watch something for 5 minutes. Strangely, there was no debate, no analysis, no comparison, no fear of making a wrong choice. His hand moved, the screen opened, and the man who had been unable to commit to one productive task for 30 minutes suddenly became capable of extraordinary commitment. One episode, then another. He did not even enjoy the third one very much, but something had changed. Before pressing play, every option had been open. After pressing play, there was only one road: continue. Midnight arrived. He knew he should stop. He continued. 1 a.m. This isn't even interesting anymore. Continue. 1:40. I will regret this tomorrow. Continue. At 2:15, he finally closed the screen. Then came the familiar disgust, not because the show was bad, because he had just witnessed something disturbing about himself. He was capable of commitment. 3 hours had proved it. He could sit in one place. He could ignore alternatives. He could continue after boredom appeared. He could resist the thought of changing activities. He could remain committed even when the reward became weaker. Uh, these were exactly the abilities he claimed he lacked when trying to build his life. Yet every night he demonstrated them perfectly for something he didn't even care about. That realization stayed with him. The next evening, that realization stayed with him. The next evening, the meeting began again. What should I learn? What should I build? Which problem should I solve? What is the optimal choice? Again, his mind demanded certainty before action. Then Raghav noticed something. Last night, before watching 3 hours of entertainment, he had demanded almost no certainty. He hadn't researched. Is this the best possible series of my future? He didn't compare 20 alternatives. He hadn't created a roadmap. He hadn't asked whether he was talented enough to finish the season. He had simply pressed play, and once the decision was made, he respected it. Raghav stared at his unfinished project. A thought arrived. What would happen if I give one useful decision the same authority? He chose the project. Immediately his mind objected. Maybe DSA is more important. He ignored it. Maybe system design would help your career more. Ignored. Maybe you should research first. Ignored. Maybe tomorrow you can make a proper plan. Ignored. For once, he treated these thoughts exactly as he treated alternative shoes after an episode had started. Not now. He worked. 20 minutes later, he became stuck, and there it was. The old emergency his mind wanted out. Check the phone, find a tutorial, watch something, start another task. Anything except remain here. Raghav felt the familiar panic of not knowing what to do next. Normally, this was where the productivity session died. But then, at that evening, he noticed the absurdity. When a series became boring, he could continue for another 2 hours. When a problem became confusing, he gave it 10 minutes before declaring defeat. Entertainment received loyalty, growth received constant evaluation. Entertainment was allowed to become boring, growth had to remain exciting. Entertainment was allowed to consume an entire evening, growth had to justify every 20 minutes. Entertainment received, continue, growth received. Is this really the best use of my time? He suddenly understood the architecture of his problem. He wasn't incapable of discipline. He had aligned he had aligned or assigned discipline to wrong master. He wasn't incapable of commitment. He committed easily to escape and reluctancy to growth. He wasn't incapable of concentration. He concentrated when nothing difficult was demanded from him. And perhaps most importantly, he wasn't losing his evening when the third episode began. He was losing them several minutes earlier when the uncertainty appeared, and he decided that uncertainty had to be removed. So he created one rule, not a timetable, not a motivational quote, not a complicated productivity system, a rule. Decision made for growth cannot be renegotiated merely because it become uncomfortable. The next day he decided 1 hour on the project. 20 minutes later, this is going nowhere. The decision had already been made. Continue. 30 minutes. Maybe I should watch a tutorial. Is it genuinely necessary? No. Continue. 40 minutes. I have no idea how to solve this. Good. Write down what you don't understand. Continue. 50 minutes. Still stuck. Continue. At 60 minutes he stopped. He had solved almost nothing, yet he felt something he had rarely experienced after productive work. Victory, not over the problem, over the negotiation. For once his mind had learned we do not hold another election simply because the work became difficult. Days passed. He still binged sometime. He still wasted time. He still made bad decisions, but gradually something fundamentally changed. He stopped expecting every productive decision to be perfect. He learned that there were two kinds of mistakes. The first was choosing a useful route that later turned out not to be optimal. The second was standing at the crossroads for so long that eventually comfort chose the road for him. He had spent years terrified of the first, while repeatedly committing the second. Year later, Raghav became known as a decisive man. Someone once asked him, how do you always know what the right decision is? He laughed, I don't. Then, how do you decide so quickly? Raghav thought for a moment. Because I eventually discovered that a good decision executed deeply is often more valuable than perfect decisions that existed only in my head. The man asked, but what if you choose incorrectly? Then reality teaches me. And if you choose, if you don't choose Raghav became quiet, then comfort chose me. That evening he returned home tired. His mind offered him several possibilities: read, build, think, watch. For a moment, the old confusion returned. Which one? What is optimal? What am I in the mood for? Then he remembered the man he used to be, a man who required certainty before doing anything valuable, but required none before wasting an entire night. He chose one useful task, set a clear stopping point, and began. 10 minutes later, his mind attempted to reopen the meeting. Maybe we should do something else, Raghav answered with the sentence that had eventually changed his life. The meeting is over. He returned to the problem later when the work was finished. He watched an episode. This time there was a difference. He wasn't escaping a decision. He had already made one. He wasn't watching because confusion had defeated him. He was watching because he had consciously chosen to rest. When the episode ended, the screen asked, "Continue watching." Raghav smiled. Years earlier, that question had controlled entire nights. Now, it was simply a question. He pressed play because he had finally learned something far more important than productivity. A mind became powerful when it stopped demanding a new decision every time. The old decision became uncomfortable. For the exact same pattern, I would imprint just two sentences from this story. I have assigned commitment to the wrong master, and once you have chosen a productive task, the meeting is over. That second sentence matters. Your goal is not to feel motivated after making a good decision. It is to stop reopening the decision every few minutes. So, with this, we are ending today's story. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.